Welcome back. Congressman Kevin McCarthy has been sworn in as Speaker of the House after a chaotic and drama-filled week that at times looked a little bit like a reality show. Joining me now to break all of this down is King 5 political analyst Rob McKenna. Rob, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, Rob, I got to say, this is the first time I can remember any real drama regarding the Speaker vote. It usually is pretty straightforward, isn't it?
It is, and the reason you don't remember it is that you weren't alive in 1923.
This is true.
The last time we had this kind of fight. It's been 100 years,
well,
and it is highly unusual for sure.
So what was the difference here?
Well, two factors. Number one, the Republicans have just a narrow majority in the House, and that empowers people who are willing to hold out to get what they want. In this case, to hold out on the Speaker's vote. Now, there have been narrow majorities in the past, and this didn't happen. And that brings in the second factor, because you need to have both.
Yeah.
One, you need a narrow majority. Number two, you need a group who's really hardcore, who are going to hold out and take a lot of heat to get what they want. And that's what you had with initially 20 members on the far right of the caucus. They call themselves the Freedom Caucus, and they decided to leverage that narrow majority to get more of what they wanted.
Do we know what the so-called Freedom Caucus or this group of conservative Republicans were asking for? And if not, what would be an example of something they might ask for?
Well, immediately what they wanted was more powerful committee appointments and more powerful leadership roles on those committees. They were hanging together, which is why this whole tactic worked. And because they were able to hang together, they did get more of what they wanted. They did get better committee assignments, for example. The longer term play here, though, is that these very conservative members of the Freedom Caucus want to have greater influence on policy. They want to influence immigration policy, for example. And so they are not just, playing the short game here, but over the next 2 years, they want to have a bigger impact on the House of Representatives work and move that work farther to the right.
And it's not as if Kevin McCarthy is a moderate. I mean, he skews more typically to the right. So why didn't he just work this out behind closed doors?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you have to believe he did try to work it out behind closed doors before they took that first vote, which he lost, or the second or the third or fourth votes for that matter. And I think that he decided to go ahead and take the votes for a couple of reasons. Number one, there are 200 other members of this caucus who are not happy with the Freedom Caucus. As I said, 200 other members of the Republican conference not happy with the Freedom Caucus. And, he was listening to them. The moderates were saying, look, don't let these people get away with that. Put it to a vote. Make them vote against you. The second reason is that McCarthy himself must have believed that he needed to put pressure on these holdouts. And by making them vote against him again and again, he did create that pressure. But at the same time, it was obvious he needed to keep negotiating with them because they didn't crack, not for many votes over many days.
Wow. I have to say, I have never seen C-SPAN so entertaining, but I felt like they had more access than ever with their cameras. Is that true? And why was that the case?
I don't know if they had more access or they just took greater advantage of the access they did have. I mean, you had real drama unfolding, and so you had a lot more camera shots of the people who were not in the well making a speech, right? And that's where a lot of the excitement occurred, including the near fist fight between two House members. So I think that C-SPAN, frankly, just saw the opportunity to provide greater background on what was happening. In other words, to show more of what was happening in the background. And they've been there a long time, so they knew how to do it.
Do you think lawmakers are going to continue to put up a fight? Is this going to be an uphill battle for McCarthy?
It will be. It will be harder for the Republicans as a group, as a whole, to accomplish what they want to accomplish without kowtowing to the Freedom Caucus members. It was already going to be difficult for the Biden administration to get its policy agenda through this House. That became even harder. The third, development is that you may see even more emphasis on investigations and scrutiny of the Biden administration, more what the former president would have called witch hunts as a result of the Freedom Caucus having more power. But again, this is a result of the red wave that some expected kind of petering out. and leaving the Republicans with a narrow majority. If they had a big majority, the Freedom Caucus wouldn't have this kind of power.
Yeah.
That could happen or not happen, depending, in 2024. And of course, in 2024, you also have the presidency on the line and a new battle over Senate control.
Yeah, it all seems like it's unfolding kind of so far away sometimes. But can you kind of explain how this affects average Americans' lives?
It's hard to say how it directly affects average Americans because it really has an impact on the bills that pass or don't pass and what form they pass in. I would say that the net impact is that the Congress will get less done over the next 2 years on some key issues like immigration, crime, maybe homelessness, and other public safety issues. And that's a bad thing for Americans. I think for those who don't like the Biden administration's policy direction, it's a good thing because it will make it even harder for President Biden to get his agenda through. So it kind of depends on where you sit, whether or not you think this is a bad thing or a good thing. Conservatives tend to believe that the less government does, the better. But of course, progressives believe the opposite. And so this will make it tougher for anything looking like progressive policy to get through the Congress.
Rob, thank you so much for talking this out with us. I'm going to keep you on speed dial because I'm sure there's going to be a lot unfolding ahead. We appreciate